Rand, I need another episode of Fully Cinematic.
The last time that we saw Chris Pine in a feature film was the unwatchable Wonder Woman 1984. But he's back, and he's reteamed with kid performer turned versatile character actor Ben Foster for the first time since 2016's excellent Hell or High Water. So despite virtually non-existent promotion, I jumped at the chance to check out the duo's latest collaboration. We begin with U.S. Army Ranger Sergeant James Harper rehabbing his knee at North Carolina's Fort Bragg, intercut with scenes of him attending funerals for fallen comrades. James spends quality time with his family on a Saturday, including teaching his son Jack how to swim. The domestic bliss is interrupted by a voicemail message notifying him that his entire team is scheduled for drug testing, which we're told hasn't been conducted in years. Consequently, he's court-martialed and honorably discharged from the Army for testing positive for HGH and other PEDs, but stripped of his pension and health care. Later, James' wife Brienne informs him that a fellow soldier, Mason, self-deleted, and she worries about him doing the same thing. We flash back to a tween James getting tatted up with the American flag on his shoulder while his Ranger father looks on approvingly nearby. Faced with mounting bills, James asks friend and former CO Mike to introduce him to fellow veteran Rusty Jennings, who runs a private contracting firm, aka a group of mercenaries. During their very first conversation, Rusty makes it clear that he's already done his homework on the interviewee and mentions Brienne and Jack by name before offering $50K up front for a Black Ops mission to foil a plot that threatens national security for a $350K payday. After he accepts, James gives Brienne the good news but lies by telling her that his new job isn't dangerous. After catching a flight to Berlin, James is briefed by a local operative about their target. Salim Mohammed Mohsen, a Syrian national and Harvard-educated virology researcher linked to suspected bioterrorists. James surveils him for a while and is eventually joined by the rest of the team, which is headed by Mike. The plan is simple: slip into the lab quickly and quietly, snag Mohsen's data, and haul ass to the airport for extraction. While everyone else completes other assignments, James sticks Mohsen with a hot shot, but not before the soon-to-be-dead scientist volunteers info on how he can retrieve research which he insists that the world will need. The team sets the lab ablaze and heads out, where they're met by German police. A firefight ensues and everybody but James and an injured Mike is killed. The pair flees through the woods and into a sewer or something that they access by way of an underwater passage. James saves his old friend with a field blood transfusion and, knowing that his bum knee will slow them down, insists that Mike leave him behind with the promise to meet up with him later. Not long after Mike departs, James pops some pills and gets his James Bourne on, making his way back to his hotel room to sleep in a tub with his gun in hand. After making contact with Rusty, James is notified that Mike hasn't been heard from. Suspicious of the extraction team Rusty sent, James immediately suspects that he had Mike killed and threatens to come for him if he finds that to be the case. The waiting operatives open fire on him, hitting bystanders, and James leads them on a chase through the city and into the sewers, where he murks several of them. Before dying, a Marine recon veteran tells him that his mission was to terminate him and that he was told they'd be saving lives as opposed to killing fellow Americans. He provides info about a safe house and warns him not to ever return home. James makes his way into Mohsen's gated home by posing as a mailman, where he gets info from his new widow before taking her and one of her sons to another location, where the missus retrieves a tablet containing info on a game-changing vaccine that Mohsen developed. James calls another vet who the Marine told him about, who knocks him unconscious, but gives him medical treatment. When he awakens, James watches a video message that Mohsen recorded for his son, which tugs at his heartstrings and no doubt reminds him of Jack. It turns out that Mohsen even wanted his vaccine to be made available free of charge. James and his surprisingly friendly host chat over dinner, and James reveals that he was deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan during his Special Forces tenure. The other guy reveals that he has a wife and two daughters who he's been apart from for 13 years. He also admits to struggling with PTSD just before he's killed by a headshot from outside. James wipes out the kill team approaching the house by setting off a gas explosion that he himself narrowly avoids. He subsequently catches a flight back to the States and glimpses Mike alive and well at home with his son Mikey and wife Christine. So of course he locks and loads in preparation to confront his old friend one last time. But Mike's not exactly a rookie, so he actually gets the drop on him. Mike divulges that James can never go home, but that his family will receive a $1 million payout if he stays gone. James informs Mike that they were all lied to, and they team up once more to take down Flatliners, knowing that he'll murder Brienne and Jack if he learns that Steve Trevor is alive. They attack Jack Bauer's compound, lighting the Lost Boys up. But Jack hits Mike with some hot ones before Steve shoots it out of him. Mike survives long enough for the two to leave, but succumbs to his wounds soon after. Captain Kirk torches the truck with Mike's corpse inside, staging a car accident, thereby ensuring that his family receives insurance money for his death. Mike was especially concerned about his son's well-being because he's special needs. We later see Kirk watching his wife and son from afar before giving in and calling out to Jack. Well, my cautious optimism was rewarded because Pine and Foster's new collaboration is a winner. While The Contractor isn't quite on par with Hell or High Water, it's miles ahead of Pine's last espionage flick, Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit. Channing Tatum also returned to theaters this year in a lead role, portraying an Army vet suffering from PTSD, coping with the loss of friends, and attempting to find his way in the world following an unwanted discharge from the military due to an injury. While it handles similar themes to the ones in this film, Dog tackles the issue from a different angle and isn't half bad either. But The Contractor has more rewatch value. Chris Pine's done with Jack Ryan and Wonder Woman, and Star Trek's still a question mark. But based on the quality of this movie, he's got a potential James Harper franchise on his hands. Give The Contractor a shot. Or watch some trash instead. I honestly don't give it either way. In other news, we got a few comments on our The Power of the Dog review, and I figured I'd highlight some. Hellraiser said, my reaction when the movie ended was meh. You know what? I've been hearing that a lot, Hellraiser. As I mentioned on an earlier show, XIX85 said, that movie sucked. Netflix movies are just horribly filmed. And responding to XIX85's complaint, Alexander Angelus said, well, this is actually well filmed and well acted. It's just a story and characters who don't do much of anything. The Potato Mafia left a comment as well, but it disappeared. Shout out to Hellraiser, XIX85, and Alexander Angelus for dropping comments. And shout out to everybody who hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But I've had enough of this conversation. I'm logging off.
Fully cinematic.